All right, let's dive into one of the most ambitious, most transformative, and honestly, most controversial periods in American history. We're talking about President Lyndon B. Johnson's Great Society. And believe it or not, the whole thing really kicks off with one single shocking number.
Just look at that, 20%. In the early 1960s, that's how many Americans, 1 out of every 5, was living below the poverty line. I mean, think about that. In the middle of all this post-war prosperity, how is that even possible? Well, this was the stark reality facing the country.
And you know, this wasn't just about money. It wasn't just an economic crisis. The mid-20th century was also defined by this deeply, deeply entrenched racial injustice. So you had this dual crisis, poverty and inequality. And that's exactly what President Lyndon Johnson was determined to take on, head on.
And this quote really captures his vision perfectly. In a 1964 speech, Johnson laid out a goal that went way beyond just making the country richer. He wasn't just aiming for a rich society, he said, but a great society, a nation where everyone had abundance and true liberty. It's a powerful idea, right?
So that vision, that became the actual blueprint for his entire domestic agenda. The Great Society was Johnson's sweeping, no-holds-barred answer to the nation's biggest problems. But okay, what did that blueprint actually look like in practice?
Well, at its core, the Great Society was this massive collection of federal programs, and they were all designed to tackle poverty and racial inequality right at the source. We're talking about an expansion of government power on a scale that hadn't really been seen since FDR's New Deal. The idea was to use federal muscle to try and fundamentally reshape American life.
Okay, so you've got the vision. The next step? Turning all of that into actual law. And the speed at which the Johnson administration got this done, it was, and I'm not exaggerating here, absolutely breathtaking.
I mean, just look at the timeline. The pace of change was just astounding. In just 2 short years, you have this wave of landmark legislation that completely changed the country. We're talking civil rights, voting rights, healthcare, and for the very first time, major federal funding for public schools. It was a legislative blitz unlike anything before or since.
And you can see the Great Society was built on all these different pillars, and it touched on pretty much every aspect of American life. You had healthcare, the famous war on poverty, of course the huge civil rights protections, but also education, urban renewal, and even environmental conservation. The ambition here was just enormous.
And of all these pillars, you could argue that the changes to healthcare have cast the longest shadow. I mean, in 1965, the creation of Medicare and Medicaid established this brand new federal commitment to health insurance for the elderly and for low-income Americans. And think about it, those 2 programs are absolutely central to our social safety net today.
But as you can probably guess, a transformation this radical didn't happen without a cost. And it for sure didn't happen without controversy. The Great Society sparked this intense debate about the role, the size, and the effectiveness of the federal government, a debate that, frankly, is still echoing today.
And this really gets to the heart of the conflict. On one side, you have these incredibly ambitious goals: wipe out poverty, expand civil rights, improve people's lives. But on the other side, you have these very sharp criticisms that the programs led to out-of-control federal spending, that they created a dependency on the government, and that they didn't even stop the urban unrest of the 1960s.
And to put the financial scale into perspective, just look at that number. Critics will point out that over $2 trillion has been spent on K-12 education alone since this era began. They see that as a symbol of unsustainable government spending. But at the very same time, supporters will fire back that between 1960 and 1970, the national poverty rate was cut nearly in half. And that is the core of the debate. Was the outcome worth the cost?
So here we are, decades later. How are we supposed to look back on the Great Society? Well, it's a complicated picture for sure. Its legacy is this mixture of undeniable impact and this persistent, ongoing debate about whether it was ultimately a success. And you know, while the name Great Society might sound like something out of a history book, its creations are literally all around us. Medicare, Medicaid, Head Start, these aren't historical footnotes. They are active, integral parts of American society, serving millions and millions of people every single day.
And that really brings us to the final big question. Was the Great Society a noble success that lifted millions out of poverty? Was it a costly failure that expanded government way too far? Or maybe it's best seen as an ambitious project that's still unfinished. The answer, just like the legacy itself, is still up for debate.